I bring to you Dr. Belle to address you this evening at this People's Assembly.
Good evening, everybody. I want to thank the People's Assembly of the Barbados Labour Party for inviting me to speak to you, as they have been inviting many persons in recent weeks. This is to do with the critical importance of the time which we live in this country, our country. And so I'm glad to be participating tonight. I'm going to speak really on political mechanics and then political engineering. I want to congratulate the concept that is manifested here as well, the excellent political initiative. It is representative of the engine of resistance to bad government. That engine is for the moment, because of the nature of the forces involved, that engine is the Barbados Labour Party, and it is capturing persons concerned about Barbados's condition and where the ruling regime is taking us. In relation to political practice, it is the way in which you initiate or build a movement of the people. And I wish to address a few issues to assist in bringing clarity to some of the political and other matters in which we are presently engaged. We need to see these political activities as an involvement in process. And we need to be able to monitor, to read, to interpret, and respond to this process as it evolves. Some issues might have arisen last week of significance. The Prime Minister might have said something last night of significance. Whatever. It is the environment in which we are living which will lead us on the way forward on how to adjust, how to accommodate, or to make a leap to advance our efforts qualitatively. The process might be linear in its greatest impact, but it is also lateral, so it is zigzagging. It can even go into reverse, it can retreat. Well, what you're looking for is a mounting, a swelling in the wave of the movement. Because it is the riding of that wave that will bring success to the resistance. And even where the wave is in place, you still need to monitor and respond and read the shaping on the crest of the wave. That is the nature of the dynamics of a resistance movement. So I will just go over that again. That what you are part of is a process, and people are going to have various levels of anxiety. In other words, should we do something now? Or they will find that there might be a hiatus in which they feel like if the energy is starting to go down. All of these are natural features of a movement. You're going to go forward and you're going to go back. You're going to test the ground. You're going to have to retreat from some problem that arises. Somebody that you are fighting against might say something that will push you back. Somebody might come and say something tonight that will carry you forward. And you have to be constantly aware to monitor and to move with that. Because what you can do is that you're going to operate like a surfer. That you're waiting for when the wave comes at the right moment. And then you're going to get on it and you're going to ride to victory. So that is what it's about. And as a human being, you have to be able to understand that you are part of that. And sometimes it's difficult. Because when you're right inside of the thing, you can't see it in the same way. So that is why I might be saying something that you're aware of, but I need to say it anyhow, so that you would be aware of what one of your responsibilities would be. Now, this economic crisis, in its origin and source, does come from outside of our situation. But it has been brought home to Barbados in its particulars, its persistence, its exacerbation by a bungling and fumbling local problem. Now we know that it is some bright boys of finance capital who created the crisis. No, those ain't Bajans. Those are people that the former president of Brazil, Lula, described as a set of blue-eyed, blonde-haired people who knew nothing. They caused the crisis, a crisis in international finance capital. That is where it started. But it is this bungling, fumbling government, the worst government Barbados has had since adult suffrage, which have been responsible for the indeterminate and wrong policies in response to the economic crisis that are the source of no confidence at this time in the governance of Barbados. That is the problem, and the economists have also outlined it. It is a problem of confidence. For reasons of party paramountcy and party sectarianism, the ruling regime opposed everything done in the previous 14 years by the Owen Arthur administration. And then proceeded to do the opposite. And we had coped in a political economy of capitalism, not in any time of plenty. There's never any time of plenty in capitalism for the masses of the people. Capitalism is an exploitative system in which a minority always benefits. What you have to learn is how to cope in it. And your leaders should be allowing you to cope in it. Barbados cannot transform international political economy of capitalism. We can help people to do it. And this is not the period either. For 25 or 30 years, that movement that struggled against international capitalism has been put on the defensive. So you could have been in any time of plenty. You were in a time of coping. We are now unable to cope in a crisis of capitalism. Investors cannot have confidence in an inept, incompetent government. And therefore, our problem is now more than economic. Our problem is more than economic. The economic analyses have been carried out. You'll be hearing the details of the economic problems for months. The heroic work of a lot of our economists. They have described the thing. Ryan described it again this evening. There's a point that the economists will concede that economics and economic analysis cannot carry you any further. It becomes a political problem. There's a political problem now. What we have in Barbados is no longer just an economic problem. We now have a political problem. you will not have investment, you will not have growth, you will not have recovery if the political problem remains. Right. So, one has to remove the political problem. If confidence is to return, you have to remove the political problem. If investment is to return, you have to remove the political problem. If you want to recover, you got to remove the political problem. If you want growth, you have to remove the political problem. Now, there are a couple of illustrations I wish to make arising out of the crisis. Because, as I said, I'm dealing with the political mechanics and the political engineering. So you got to go in the engine room. There is clearly a problem with the trade unions. More specifically, there's a problem with the trade union leadership. Now, I'm not lashing out at any trade unions because we need the trade unions. The trade unions are very important. Something has been done to them over the period, and it's 25 years of pressure. Well, I ain't going down wilderness, but get anybody money. I know that for 25 years they've been told that we are living in a situation of win-win. The people on top that are licking you, winning, and the people at bottom you're getting licks winning too. And they have bought that. It's a neoliberal ideology that they have brought, a win-win philosophy. It has gone right across the society. It is not only in the trade union movement, but I'm concerned with the trade union movement because they are an important part of the issue. Because, you see, in resistance, as we saw in 91, 94, and so on, and as we see in other parts of the world, but specifically in the case of Barbados, trade unions are very important to building the movement. We have something called the Public Order Act that was passed in 1970. The only institutions that are exempt from constraints in people expressing their right to organize, the right to associate, the right to assemble. One of the two, or one of the few, is the trade union movement. The churches are another one. You see, political parties in this period, when we do not have elections, at 11 o'clock, a political party cannot speak any further. The police will come up to the person and tell them it's 11 o'clock, and the Public Order Act passed in 1970 says that you got to stop. If you are familiar with Mr. Eric Seeley, when you reach 11 o'clock, he used to say, in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, this is now a meeting at the church. In my active revolutionary days, when I organized a trade union, we had a little dispute that carried us into Independence Square. And there was a certain business person who was telling a sergeant of police, go across the road and move them. We were a registered trade union. And I saw the sergeant start to walk across. And I told him, you're going to walk across here, and then you're going to both turn and go back across the road. Because we are a registered trade union, and we could put our beating up anywhere. and we will talk. So that is why the trade union movement will be very important. The church will be very important, and their consciousness in the leadership in relation to a time when they need to resist will be important, because they're the people that have the room, even more than a political party. But that is why this particular approach is important, because the Barbados Labour Party is the engine, but you are building a People's Assembly movement. The biggest of the bourgeoisie in the United States, one of the biggest figures, and I've had to give this illustration quite a lot in recent times. Last year I spoke to the Barbados Workers Union on problems that they were having then, and the Barbados Secondary Teachers Union on problems that they were having then. And I made the illustration of Warren Buffett, because I saw what was happening to them internally. They were there making, and I was involved with a panel discussion recently in one, and the leading trade unionists was coming with the same line. Win-win, don't need to strike old-fashioned, all those kinds of things. But Warren Buffett said, and he's one of the more enlightened members of the American bourgeoisie, he said, this crisis, this is class war, and we intend to win. Now, I'm not saying that you got to reduce it to that, because it's more than just class war here. It is a whole nation that's being oppressed. And all the people outside of the oppressors must unite against the oppressor. But I've gotten a feeling that, again, with the leadership, that our trade unions are telling the workers to indulge in self-flagellation. So you get a minimalism developing. You've got to be very careful with this minimalism, because it was used during slavery to control you without chains. So it'll tell you that you are the best slaves if you live in Barbados. So enjoy slavery, man. I remember when I was a cadet in number 1 company, Harrison College, and we were going to Canada. They did some propaganda on us. We are the best cadets in the Caribbean. Can march better than anybody else, shoot better than anybody else, do everything better than anybody else, because you are Bajans. And then when we reached Canada, we saw the Jamaicans marching, and we knew they were lying. You see, George Lyman would tell you, and this is not a criticism of Barbados, because Barbados, I have one of the people that contributed to saying that the Barbados history matches the history of any other Caribbean country in terms of resistance. But George Lyman used to say that when you see a Barbadian walking, he look like he want to walk down in the earth. When you see a Jamaican walking, he want to walk up to the moon. Okay? Take that however you want to take it. But be careful with the minimalism. Self-controlling ideology. So they will tell you, do your overtime. That will save your job. Now, why did you define it as overtime in the first place? You understand? Why did the trade union define it as overtime? They must have seen some impact that doing that does to the worker. It gives you stress. It overworks you. And it's also a way you'll be exploited. And I know people who have dropped down when they talk about they're going to volunteer to eat less, work harder, all kinds of things, you know? But they preach that to you. Then they tell you, somebody was talking about sardines earlier. Eat sardines, you do this and all that kind of thing. You get sick, you know. When you get sick, they say, well, you know, you could dead. Anyhow, that's a bad joke. Now, this government, the regime, is very good at propaganda. And that is a part of the process that you have to monitor very, very carefully and creatively, because they're very good at propaganda. You've got to be careful that because I come here and say these things about the trade union, the night that they don't say that we are against the trade unions. That is the manipulation of language. And when you can't respond to that quickly and turn it around, you're in trouble. I just gave you an illustration. I want to come back to one of the things that has weakened the trade union movement, the sectarianism within it. But let's say a couple of weeks ago, I was addressing the Pan-African groups. And I felt that I need to show how you have to turn around a word. So everybody's talking about unity, but unity about what? You see? So they will use unity now, every man on board, everybody on deck, and so on. Before they were doing the opposite, they were telling you, I don't want to hear you, because they are sectarian. We want unity. But you want unity to get rid of the problem. We have to unite to get rid of the problem, not unite just to perpetuate it, for instance. So that is the point. But I'll tell you something that the trade unions did as well. They became very overwhelmed with human resource management and industrial relations, technical thinking, and so on. And they have sectarianism, practice sectarianism within the movement. I remember that Sir Frank Walcott, he used to write in the paper every week and write about issues across the board in relation to workers. And there was a purpose behind that. It was to tell every set of workers that they had, that there was an interest that they shared. Because, you see, a dominant group usually divides the rule. So what they will do is to try to treat you as individuals. And when they treat you as individuals, they can pick you off because you are weak as an individual. They have individuals in the world that are strong as individuals, and they are in the minority. How do you think they control a majority? Because they have resources. They have power. They have a culture that they use to dominate. And why are people, in comparison to them, weak? Because they don't have resources. Because they can be confounded and confused sometimes by the techniques of these people. And that is why both in political parties and in trade unions, one of the roles of the institution is to provide scaffolding, to pull the people together, to tell them, your problem is like that other person's problem, is like that other person's. Solidarity forever. Unity and solidarity forever. That is what they do. They provide the scaffolding to pull you together. And that is how you can then match the strength of that minority that has a lot of power over you individually. But that minority is going to tell you all the time, don't mind he, don't mind he. It's yourself. Ask the Lord for help. The trade union, over that 25 years of pressure that I've been talking about, the win-win philosophy, the paradigm of neoliberalism, the ideology of neoliberalism, they have treated their membership in that way. So watch one of the things that was happening recently. I am a teacher. They said they ain't touching any teachers. Like, cool. They're touching the sanitation workers. They ain't touching me. The nurse, I'm a nurse. Ain't touching me. I'm a police or security anyhow, so they ain't gonna touch me. They ain't got enough policemen anyway in Barbados. They need more. Can't touch me. But when they fire all the sanitation workers, they'll come for you next. They'll come for you next. And you know, they had that old saying, I don't want to say it again because you almost heard it everywhere a long time. Oh yeah, they came for the communists. And I was not a communist. They came for the trade unionists. I was not a trade unionist. And then they came for me. And there was nobody to defend me. Yes. So just remember that. All the ones that secure now. And remember, you're dealing with a man that tell you, I ain't going to lay off one of you. And 12 months later, you're ready to lay off all of you. You would trust him if you are a teacher. Solidarity forever. And that is what the unions have lost out on. And they don't have they have not preached solidarity. They can't get unity. Therefore, their organization is weak. Therefore, they're now fighting for the backsides. That's what's wrong with them now. There are some of them that are struggling. I want to say, I've seen the fellas that have gone through the old times and so on, like Sir Roy, and I would even say the General Secretary of the NUPW. They've tried. But they're under so much pressure. You know? I don't know if they can make it. Well, mine is down there, but... Right. So that is really that is part of what is keeping the unions back. They should be the ones that should be in the center of this movement because they're protected in a way that even the political party is not protected. And they should have been preaching all the years that if they touch you, they touch me. And that we have to protect you. Don't tell workers that are temporary that they don't have a job. They are human beings. That is what you're dealing with. The fact that they are human beings and they should not be treated in a way. And this organization which protects the interests of human beings is going to do something about the fact that they're being unfaired. That's a good Bajan word. Unfaired. And you will not stand for it. And I've seen them go and strike and picket and all kinds of things for much less than this. And now these people are bringing down Barbados and they don't want to shut down the government. Why are you demonstrating? Why are you picketing? It is a political problem. If it's a political problem, where is the problem? In Bear Street. You can't picket Bear Street. Now, I'm saying that I better go careful here now, okay? Because they told me in the House of Assembly that I was one neophyte. Yeah, I think he's a neophyte. There's nothing offensive about that. He's just a neophyte. He's objectively a neophyte. Which is why I had to tell him what I told him. That he didn't even know what treason meant. Because if I had committed treason, he's saying that he want to kill me. He wanted to execute me because I said that under the Westminster government, you can bring down, under the Westminster system, you can bring down a government. But Frondell Stewart could do that tonight because he could resign. So you can hang him for treason? So it's how simple it is to bring out the government. You all feel like it's so difficult. And one of my colleagues like to say how difficult it is because I got pensions and all kind of thing. You just got to make the mayor run the government house and give the Governor General a letter of resignation and the government can fall. Now, after that, you move to the next stage. But before I get there, somebody said I might say something to defend the university. And I can say what I'm saying about the university now. You know, they're busting up the university. Take away all our money. The surpluses that we created to say that that's fat. We can live on the fat. Now we like bones. And the same way that the unions have been impacted, the intellectuals are impacted too. Because here's this government that we're our money, telling the students they got to pay. And the leadership, or some of the leadership of the university saying, we know they can pay, we don't know when. But the government loves the university. Well, that sounds like a woman in an abusive relationship. Now, unity does not mean sameness. Unity does not mean sameness. And as a matter of fact, if you try to make everybody the same, you will have weakness. So we don't have to fear the differences of people, differences of opinion. Some of you all are militants of the Barbados Labour Party. Other people are supporters and so on. You don't have to worry about that. Everybody's not the same. But at these critical moments, there's a need for unity. Unity even where there's not sameness. The other side is going to try to use diversity to divide you. Divide and rule. Now, we need to appeal to the politicians in the House of Assembly whose consciences are troubling them, but who are thinking of pensions to come to the conclusion and to the consciousness that if they wish to preserve their pensions, they must join the people. Now, see, noise, you're going quiet. And rid themselves of the regime. So what does that mean? If they wish to lose the pensions, they can stay and defend the anti-people policies of the regime. They need only to be independent to bring the government down. They can then negotiate their political future and their pensions. So let them step out. If they can't come right across the floor, let them go independent. Vote against the regime. Fandel will have to resign. In 3 weeks, you got elections. Yeah, it might have 3 months. But it won't be long. It will be much shorter than 4 years. So the unity must now be against a regime drifting towards dealing with the IMF, towards devaluation of the Barbadian currency, and with no confidence to build a recovery and growth. Unity, not sameness, is strength. Solidarity now, solidarity tomorrow, solidarity forever.